I'm going to be showing you how you can add Git to your projects and also show you the Git workflow that I use for my own projects. Now what I do is not very complex at all, so this video is for you if you want a simple workflow or if you're brand new to Git. So in this video we're going to walk through from scratch how to add Git to a project. So if you want to follow along, go ahead and open a folder of a project that you'd like to add Git to. So I have a simple JavaScript project here that I'm going to be adding, and this is what we're going to be walking through right now. So the first thing that we're going to do is initialize a folder with Git. We can do this by running git init and make sure you have Git installed already. So what this does is this initializes the Git repository or creates a Git repository in this folder. And from here on out, we can now run Git commands. Now the command that I run quite a bit is called git status. So this kind of tells us what's going on in this folder. And here we can see we have some untracked files. In this case, the first thing that I do is I run git status and I see what files it tells me. Or in this case, I can see there's some folders in here as well. And so I ask myself, of these files and folders, do I not want to show any of these, or do I not want to track any of these? Because what we're doing with Git is basically keeping a history of changes we make to these files. So for example, node modules, I don't care about. I don't want to see a history of it, or I don't need a history. Or it doesn't make sense to keep a history for it. And there may be other things where you have, for example, an API key that you're showing. So you don't want to store these things in Git. So what you can do is create a file called a .gitignore. So in this file, what you do is you specify anything that you do not want to be tracked by Git. So in my case, I'm going to create a node modules and just basically just put the name of the folder or the file here, and then Git will ignore it. It'll look for this file and then it will not track it. And the other thing is, for example, you may have something called like .env. If you have environment files that you want to add to this, these are basically things where I might be storing things which I don't really need to track and that are secrets. So anything like that you want to put in your git ignore and make sure you're not tracking. So now if I were to run git status after adding these two things, you'll notice we have a new file that we can possibly track called gitignore. It's currently untracked though. And node modules is gone. So perfect. So I don't want that in here, so I'm good to proceed. Then after that, we have to tell Git what things that we want to actually start tracking. And basically what's called git adding them. So we can add a single file by saying git add, for example, package.json. And now if we say git status, we can see we've added a file to the staging area. And so staging area is the things that we want to possibly commit or possibly save. So I added package.json, and I don't want to go through and add all these things individually. So we can run a git command called git add and use the -a flag. So this is what I most commonly will use, and this will just add all the files to the staging area. So now if I say git status, we can see here's all the things that I have there. And then after that, you commit it, or this is equivalent to, for example, saving it. And then what you're going to do here is you're going to create or use the -m flag to specify a message. So for example, here, I usually call the first commit, I'll just say initial commit. And that's basically the first commit that we've done. And then that's pretty much it. We just did our first commit, and I now usually want to add this to a remote repository. And what that means is basically store it in a remote location so I can access it from other places, and I have a copy there, or if I'm working on a team, other people can access it as well. So usually for that, I'll use GitHub. This is the one I use most often. So I'm just going to create a name for it. I'm going to call it simple.js. That's the name of my project. And then I'm going to say create repository. And then after that, we can see the second command is the thing that we're going to be using, because we already have an existing repository we just created. You'd notice we're using a new command called git remote. So we're saying git remote add origin, and then we're just using the URL to our repository. You notice this is equivalent to what we have in the URL up here, but .git is at the end of it. And then after that, so this is the first thing that we're going to run. So that adds the this as a remote repository, and you'll notice we gave it a name. We called it origin, and then we are saying git push here. So we're going to copy that. So git push, and then this flag I believe pushes like tags and stuff, but you don't have to worry about that for now. We could even remove it. It's not really necessary for this first push. unless you have other stuff. But if you're a beginner, you don't have to worry about it. So you'll notice we said origin, so we're pushing to our GitHub repository. And then we say master, which is the branch, which we're going to talk more about in a second. So we push up to that, and now we refresh, and we can see our code over here. So now from here, pretty much the workflow, or how you use this, is I now have my code saved, and then I want to make changes and save it again. So for example, let's say I want to add some more stuff to my code. I'm going to create a new route called hello2. Give that a save. Now I can say git status. I can see what status the repository is in. I can see I've made some changes to this file, but they have not been added yet. So I can say git add, and I can just add that single file if I want, or I can add all the files. So we'll say git add all, then we'll commit, and then here we'll say add a hello route. And so we have 2 commits. And so basically you can just rinse and repeat from here. Make changes, git add all, git commit, and then you'll notice these changes are not automatically reflected over here. Whenever you make changes locally, you can have them reflect on GitHub by saying git push origin master to push up the code. And basically, if I'm just developing something, I'll just rinse and repeat those commands over and over again. I'll make changes, git add, git commit, git push. Now, things get a little bit more, you need to do a little bit more if you're in production, or you may want to handle it differently. So personally, this is what I do, and it's a very simple setup that works pretty well. So basically, I want to keep track of code that is run in production versus code that I'm developing. So for example, let's say I push this to production and I am running this on my website. This is my website running live, and I want to basically make some changes to my website, but I also want to know what version of the site is currently on the website. So this is where branches are helpful. So I can basically create a copy of what I'm doing here, or of my code, and then I can basically make changes to it and merge in, or basically have 2 copies of the code if I need to. So to do that, I say git checkout, and I'd use the -b command. So what that does is we're going to basically create a branch and then go inside of it. So let's say I'll usually say feature and then / whatever I'm doing, and I'm going to say hello3 route. And so now let's say I add another thing, so that we say hello3. This is my 3rd route. And then after I make a change, we're going to see git status, git add, git commit, and this is going to be a hello3 route. Right, so we're going to do that same workflow over and over and over again is pretty much what I'll do. And then when I'm at a point where like, all right, so the code that I have here, I'm ready to push into production, right? Or maybe I'm not ready to push this in production yet. I want to go back to the code that's currently in production. I can switch between the code that's in production by saying git checkout master. And now I can see the code I have saved that's running in production here. And if I do git branch, I can see the 2 branches that I have. So I'm currently on the master branch, or viewing the code that's on the master branch. And then I see the code that's over here. I can go back to the code that's on the feature branch, and I can see that they're here. And so for example, I'm happy with this code now, or maybe I want to add one more route to it, hello4. And then we'll commit it. And then I'm ready to push this to production now, so I say git checkout master, and then I'll merge the feature branch. So I'll say git merge feature hello3, and so now you'll notice the code on the master branch is merged in with the code that we added in that branch. So then I will delete that branch because I don't need it anymore, and then I'll deploy my code, and of course you can push this up to GitHub as well. And we created another branch when we did that hello3 route, and we could also push that up to GitHub as well if we wanted to. So let's say I want to do another one. This is the 5th route I want to make. I can push this up to GitHub as well, so I can see the different branches on there. But that's basically the workflow that I do, is I'll create a branch for features, and then I'll merge it when I'm done, I'll push up, And that sequence is very simple, but works very well on a small project. And so in here, we can push up this code that we made in the branch by saying git push origin feature hello route. And if we go over to GitHub, we can see that branch on our GitHub. And you can just switch between them here if you want to see the two routes. And again, when I'm happy and done with this fifth feature that I added, I'm going to merge it back into master, push master up, and continue on.